All right, so we're going to take a look at exercise 31 and the SPSS computations for this exercise. So we're on page 353, and you'll notice that the data that I have in front of me in SPSS looks very similar to what you'll see on, on top of page 353. And so we're interested in discussing the independent samples t-test, which is discussed in this exercise. But you'll also notice that you'll also be utilizing some of the computations that you've seen in previous exercises. For example, you'll notice in the study questions, and this isn't the only thing that you'll be doing, but on problem 2, you have the Shapiro-Wilk test of normality, which was discussed in exercise 26. So that was from week 2, and so this is just an additional tool that you'll be using in SPSS for this week, but you'll also want to reference as needed and utilize some of the SPSS calculations we did in previous weeks and exercises. So keep that in mind. You're not just using what I'm about to discuss right now for this exercise. So keep that in mind, that you'll have to remember what you've learned in previous weeks and exercises. All right. So we have the data in here, the IDs, the group, the hours, and I changed the decimals to 0, the names, the ID names. So, the only thing I really did in here is all that really matters. And so we'll go into analyze, and we're going to compare means. And so I'm looking at step 1 on page 353. Analyze, compare means, and independent samples t-test. Okay, so you'll notice that in step 1 they mention moving the hours worked, over to the test variables. All right, so that's what they mention in step 1. The illustration that you see right below step 1, it actually has step 2 done already. So that meaning I'm referring to the grouping variable. You'll notice that the group is already over there, but that's not actually discussed until step 2. So if you go on to page 354, step 2, they mention move the independent variable group over to the grouping variable. All right, so this is where we separate the two different groups. As you can see, there's 1s and 2s. They're separated in the first 10 IDs is from group 1. The second 10 IDs is from group 2. Okay, so that's what this is actually doing. So right now we haven't identified what group 1 and group 2 is actually. So that's what we're doing here. Define groups. They mentioned to go to define groups. And in the step 2, they mention enter 1 and 0 to represent the coding chosen to differentiate between the two groups. Now, you'll want to enter in for group 1 the first number that you see, which is 1. So group 1 is the first 10 IDs, and group 2 is the second 10 IDs. So it's just separating them into two different subgroups, group 1 and group 2. Okay, and that's what we want to do. So you'll notice that we're not actually entering 1 and 0 in for group 1 and group 2. You're entering 1 and 2. So anyways, so after we hit continue, I already hit continue, we'll hit OK, and we'll get the output. So it's coming, I promise. Okay, there we go. Here is the output. We have the t-test and the group statistics, and that's the first table that you'll see in in here. So we'll have all that same information in here. It may not look exactly like what you see in the output from the interpretation, that first table. You'll notice that the group I have right here, it's 1 and 2. They have treatment group, control, and supported employment on page 354 in that first table. But all the numbers are the same. So that's what we really care about, is the output, the actual data. The labels, it's not really that big a deal. So anyways, the second table is independent sample test. And we have the same, you'll notice that we have, significant value of 0.087, 3.267, and all the same information in here. So we have the same data, and so I would encourage you to look, even before the SPSS computations. They have a lot of information that they discuss, the computation, the hand computations or calculations. You'll want to look over that. You'll be doing most of the computations with the SPSS computation steps and the output we get from that. But make sure you read over a lot of that. You'll get the entire exercise. You'll get a lot of good information of the interpretations and what a lot of this represents from the table. And then you'll want to go into the study questions on page 356 and look over those 10 questions and the answers to study questions. As I mentioned, you won't only be using this independent samples t-test that you see right here. You'll also be using the Shapiro Wilk test from exercise 26 on problem 2. And you'll notice that you may need to reference back to that and possibly other tests that we've used in the class. So keep that in mind. Again, I mentioned. And then also the last thing I want to mention, on page 360, we have another set of data in table 31.2. That is what you'll want to use, table 31.2, not this data right here. This data is used just for the study questions. So use this data to learn what to do and figure out how to analyze things, and then once you figure that out, go to page 360, table 31.2, enter that table into SPSS, and that will be used to answer the questions from the questions to be graded. So this is not used for the questions to be graded. There's a separate table 31.2 on page 360 that you'll be using for the questions to be graded. Fair warning. Okay, that's about it. And if you have any concerns, please let me know. I'll be more than happy to help.